From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefanía Bravo, and this is From the South. The migrant caravan heading to the U.S. border has resumed their march in Mexico. They left the town of Huixtla at dawn on Wednesday and will be walking for 12 hours to reach their next stop in the town of Mapastepec, many reports being injured, their feet bleeding due to walking nearly 800 kilometers for 10 days straight in plastic shoes or flip-flops. The migrants are determined to reach the U.S. despite the threats of President Donald Trump. But the caravan isn't just limited to the group that's already in transit. Hundreds are following in their footsteps despite all the difficulties they face at the border.
Neither the heat nor the long hours can persuade the Honduran migrants to return. They refuse to leave the border where the government of Mexico has only allowed entry to a limited number. Some have been here for more than 3 days and they still live in hope.
They only give priority to women and children, which is good, because kids may not be able to take it.
The reasons that bring these migrants here and the needs to cross the border are essential for their survival.
We want to meet our family. They are in the caravan ahead.
Every time a migration official or federal police officer approaches the gate that prevents them from continuing their journey, they pay careful attention but are cautious.
The governments are very corrupt. I do not believe them. One cannot believe them. They are very corrupt.
But there's an alternative. A few meters from the international bridge, locals are helping them to cross the river via rafts.
The transit of people have never stopped because migrants always pass through here, and this is how we make a living out of the river.
Some people say they have always preferred to travel to the other side in rafts. Here in the Suchiate River, the border never closes and doesn't discriminate.
And the Trump administration has made a number of accusations about the caravan. They suggest there may be terrorists from the Middle East among the migrants, that it was organized by the left wing, and that it might have been financed by the government of Venezuela and U.S. Democrats.
You had said that there were Middle Easterners in the caravan. Can you explain that? Are you saying there are terrorists?
Well, they could very well be, yeah. They could very well be. And if you look at...
you know for sure?
I have very good information. And if you look at what's happened with Honduras and statements made about Honduras, and even a phone call that our vice president had today, which I think you can maybe reveal. Do you want to mention that, Mike? Is that okay? Probably.
Certainly.
Go ahead, please.
No, at the President's direction, I spoke to President Hernandez of Honduras. He told me that the caravan that's now making its way through Mexico, headed for the southern border, was organized by leftist organizations and financed by Venezuela. We, as we've said...
And the Democrats, maybe? And the Democrats?
Well,
let me give you this pen.
Moving on to Argentina, lower house is set to vote on the budget this Wednesday. Thousands demonstrated outside Congress on Tuesday, and more protests are planned for the coming hours. The protesters say the budget will harm economically vulnerable persons in society, and that problems like food shortages can no longer be tolerated. They also say the budget is being rushed through to meet the demands of the International Monetary Fund.
The bill sent by Macri's government seeks to pass into law a huge cut in public spending. It also foresees a 0.5% contraction in Argentina's economy, while giving guarantees to the interests of financial capital and international speculators.
We are going to have 4 years of government with inflation close to 35% next year. If the dollar shoots up and unemployment is in the order of 14 to 15%, it's going to be very traumatic for Argentina, because it's going to be the first time that both indicators combine.
The government's objective is win approval in the lower house before Friday. That is the day they will meet with the IMF to discuss their bailout agreement. They want to signal to the markets in advance that the adjustment is underway.
We're going to have lower salaries. The government's balance sheet shows that in 2019 the economy will have higher inflation, more poverty, and a deeper recession.
An austerity program agreed upon by the government and the IMF that will remove subsidies, diminish public employment, and cut expenses in public work. In this way, Macri's government intends to remove uncertainties about Argentina's ability to pay its foreign debt.
Interest rates from the foreign debt are growing at an accelerated pace. It's apparent that these rates will turn out to be a huge part of the national budget.
The government's goal is to pass the budget before the end of November, a requirement of the IMF to finish disbursing the $57 billion loan it made to Argentina.
Still in Argentina, the militarization of internal security is causing great controversy. Experts believe this is a new level of illegal interference by the government that is against people's interests. Many feel this is a strategy that serves the interests of foreign powers, in particular those of the United States. Moving on to Ecuador, Foreign Minister José Valencia has said his country has no plans to intervene with the British government on behalf of Julian Assange. Valencia said Ecuador has agreed to protect Assange inside Ecuador's embassy, but clarified that the country holds no further responsibility. The WikiLeaks founder recently sued the government of Ecuador over new conditions imposed on him to remain under asylum. He now fears he could be arrested and extradited to the United States if he is forced to leave the embassy.
Ecuador's agreement is to protect Mr. Assange's integrity inside Ecuador's diplomatic mission. That's what Ecuador has to do. Ecuador has no responsibility to take any further steps. Of course, at some point, if we can facilitate a conversation between Mr. Assange and the British side, we'll do it. But nothing more than that. We're not Mr. Assange lawyers, nor are we representatives of the British government. It is a direct relationship that exists between Assange and Great Britain.
And former Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa has spoken out about the situation of Julian Assange and the possibility that he might be handed over to the U.S. government.
It is taken very seriously because there is an agreement between the Ecuadorian government with the American government. We were visited by Vice President Mike Pence several months ago, and they agreed this to turn over Assange, among other things, for instance, to end the Chevron affair and to isolate Venezuela. So it's part of an agreement already set, so they are following this agreement. So it's very serious. They try to humiliate Assange, and they are humiliating themselves. They are humiliating Ecuador, my country, because they are, these rules are really against human rights, and they are trying to isolate Assange and to push him to abandon our embassy.
After fleeing the country and seeking asylum in an unknown country, the former Communications Secretary of Ecuador has sent out a video condemning the current state of law in the country.
Citizens of Ecuador, friends, family, it's unbelievable what's happening in our country. I'm currently under asylum in a country that has understood that there is an ongoing political persecution in Ecuador and that our justice system is broken.
And finally, while Ecuador's defense minister is hailing the success of the U.S. Navy's hospital ship that recently arrived in Esmeraldas, some patients complained that they were not able to access the medical care they so desperately needed.
This is Carmen. She's one of many residents desperately in need of medical assistance. Carmen suffers with painful varicose veins in her legs and was told she urgently requires surgery. Sadly, her medical insurance does not cover this type of treatment at public hospitals. So when she heard about the ship's arrival, she wasted little time in seeking help. However, she was met with disappointment.
This is a joke. We have been here since 7 o'clock yesterday and we have been told that there is only dental medicine. It is not right that they have deceived us like this, in this town where some of us are literally at death's door.
Several citizens told a similar story. Some were upset about having to endure an hour-long wait for medical attention. With the scorching heat of the sun bearing down on them, They say they'll feel as though they were being insulted by the defense ministry at the United States Embassy.
They lied to us. After 2 weeks of $1 million promotions promising that this hospital ship was going to be the long-awaited help we need. However, it has failed to deliver. Only the relatives of the authorities and persons close to them seem to be getting attention.
They said they were bringing specialists from the United States. We believed that they would have been able to provide us with good medication. However, look how they have treated us. This is a mockery.
The visit of the U.S. comfort ship is part of an international cooperation agreement between the United States and Ecuador. The vessel's medical team says it is expected to attend to over 700 patients a day and carry out about 20 surgeries on board. Ecuador's defense minister attempted to address the people's concern.
The international cooperation with the United States is of great importance. We assured that the medical team would see patients over the next few days, all those that need urgent medical attention, so Colm can return to Esmeraldas.
Despite the government's claims of success, some citizens say Esmeralda continues to be one of the most neglected provinces in the country. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Ecuador.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
It's no secret that far-right presidential candidate Jair Bolsonaro holds resentment towards social movements, which he accused of stealing Brazil's resources. Many see him as a threat to democracy because of his sexist, homophobic, racist, and authoritarian comments. We bring you more in our special series, Bolsonaro or Haddad, two opposite projects for Brazil.
The destinies of close to 150 million Brazilians truly rests within their own hands. Liberal Social Party candidate Jair Bolsonaro strongly backs the use of anti-terror laws against social movements. He has also made it clear that he will not condone any form of social activism. On the other hand, Workers' Party candidate Fernando Haddad promises to introduce new agrarian and urban reforms. He also guarantees equal representation of all people. Bolsonaro's supporters agree with his proposed suppression of social movements.
There has to be better regulations, because we can't continue like this. Invasions carried out by these groups are wrong. Anyone who chooses to invade another person's private property is wrong. That is simple evil.
In a video message, Bolsonaro said he would wipe off the map persons he described as red criminals. He was referring to social and labor organizations. Political analysts warn that the relationship between Bolsonaro and the business elite could have a serious impact on workers' rights.
São os empresários que estão financiando as fake news.
Businessmen are financing fake news. They are essentially enabling the dismantling of labor rights, and that is why they consider Bolsonaro a strong ally. He is a candidate without limits. He will persecute his opponents. He will silence human rights activists. He will persecute any worker who will try to defend his rights.
She was a political prisoner during the Brazilian civil-military dictatorship. Now Solange José walks the streets of Rio de Janeiro, rallying support for Fernando Haddad, and to let people know the threat that Bolsonaro represents.
The Brazilian people do not know how severe a dictatorship is. I experienced it firsthand. I know what is it, and that's why I am out here. I have been part of the teachers' union for 20 years. I had to quit my job because I needed brain surgery. This was because of the injuries I sustained from being repeatedly struck in the head during the military dictatorship.
Voters have seen and heard the hateful messages Bolsonaro has sent his opponents. In addition to his son's threat to close the Supreme Court, now the destinies of millions of Brazilians truly rests within their own hands.
Workers' Party candidate Fernando Haddad was greeted by a massive demonstration in Rio de Janeiro on Tuesday night. Haddad continues to call for a debate with his opponent Jair Bolsonaro before Sunday's runoff election. He said that the debate can take place anywhere and in any format, saying democracy will suffer if voters are unable to compare the two candidates' ideas. Haddad has slightly narrowed the gap between himself and Bolsonaro in the most recent Ibope opinion poll published on Tuesday.
I have an announcement to make for you all. Sunday we're going to win the election. Sunday we're going to win the election. I have no doubt about what I'm saying. It's in the air. Since yesterday I have been feeling change in the air. We're beginning to grow and Jair Bolsonaro is beginning to fall. He's going to start trembling. He's going to start trembling. Jair, look at yourself in the mirror. Poor you, poor you. You're nothing more than a phony soldier. You only talk big because you have armed people around you. You in a hand-to-hand fight are nothing. You're nothing, Jair Bolsonaro.
The public prosecutor in El Salvador has issued an arrest warrant for Captain Álvaro Saravia, who's accused of murdering Archbishop Oscar Romero, who was canonized by Pope Francis earlier this month.
We have just been informed of the court's resolution on the murder case of Archbishop Romero. We haven't received the complete ruling yet, but we have been told to send out an arrest warrant for Mr. Álvaro Saravia and to investigate war crimes committed during the military dictatorship.
Salvadoran President Salvador Sánchez Serén is visiting Cuba to strengthen commercial ties, solidarity programs, and medical cooperation. Sánchez Serén said that the two nations play a key role in the region. He added that Cuban teachers are very important for Salvadorian people, as more than 300,000 people have benefited from programs of cooperation. Sánchez also defended Salvadorian migration to the United States.
El Salvador y Cuba hemos tratado de actuar.
El Salvador and Cuba have tried to act closely in all political scenarios, working towards making Latin America a united region and reinforcing economical ties. For us, immigrating is a human right, and so migrants' rights have to be respected. We're totally against Donald Trump's policy and vision of migration. Salvadorian migrants help the United States economy.
The Jamaican economy is on the right track. That's according to Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Holness attended the opening of the 20th South Housing Development, the latest in a series of affordable home building projects to fulfill the ambitions of those who'd like to get on the property ladder. On his Twitter account, he said that business and consumer confidence are at record high levels, as are investments in various sectors. So Jamaica is well on the way to path of prosperity. In a week in which climate change showed itself to be a real threat to both Trinidad and Tobago, the Unemployment Relief Program spent some time on Wednesday morning planting sea grapes along the coastline in Lambu, Tobago. The Environmental Division of the URP is responsible for treating beach erosion and cleanup and beautification efforts in historical sites and public parks and nature views. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your green zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Members of South African shack dwellers movement Abashali Base Mugondolo recently took to the streets to demand an end to what they call political persecution. To talk about this, we are now joined by telephone with the leader of the movement, Sibu Sikode. Sibu, thank you so much for joining us. Let's begin by explaining who Abashali Base Mugondolo is.
Thank you very much. Abahlali Basemjondolo is a shared dwellers movement, or rather a slum dwellers movement that was formed and to fight for, protect, promote, and advance the interests and the dignity of the shared dwellers and the impoverished in South Africa. So we are a land rights movement.
We understand that you have been hiding for the past 3 months. Could you explain to our viewers the events that led to this situation?
Well, Abashali is a fast-growing social movement in South Africa. We have a membership of more than 55,000 around the country. Now, the growth of the movement has become threat to the power. Abashali has successfully organized outside the state. Abashali has successfully organized outside the African National Congress, the ruling party. Abashali has successfully exposed corrupt, high-ranking politicians. As a result, Abashali to self-enrichment by the politicians. Those are some of the elements that have led to myself and other leaders having to flee their homes after the attempted attack and murder of myself and other comrades.
Sibu, one last question for you. The ANC government has announced the policy of land exploration without compensation. What does this policy mean to movements such as yours?
Well, the expropriation of land without compensation is nothing else than the voting tactics and campaign of the African National Congress, the ruling party, which has lost its credibility from the black majority working class people. So in order to attract that majority voters, up with that proposal. So for us, expropriation of land without compensation is taking land from the white minority elite and give it to black individual elites, not in any address the imbalance of the land that was dispossessed from the majority black people in South Africa. So they are not actually talking about the land for living, for people to build housing. They do not talk about it must come before its commercial value. So they are only focusing on the land that is for profit, the commercial land just for farmers to give it to other black elites. So for us, there's no hope on that proposal. It is nothing else than the election campaign mechanism.
Sibu, thank you so much for your time for Telesur. We have been speaking with Sibu Sikode. He is the leader of South African shack dwellers movement, Abashali Base Mugondolo. More news now. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has spoken to the media for the first time since the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi was confirmed. He was talking at the Future Investment Initiative Forum in Riyadh.
First of all, The crime was really painful to all Saudis, and I believe it is painful to every human in the world. It is a heinous crime that cannot be justified. Today, Saudi Arabia is carrying out all legal things to finalize the investigation, to cooperate with the Turkish government, and to present the perpetrators to the court and take their judgment. This is the expected thing that all governments would do once they see a crime. Undoubtedly, the cooperation today between the Saudi and Turkish government is unique. And we know that many are trying to use this painful thing to drive a wedge between Saudi Arabia and Turkey.
Federal authorities are investigating suspected of explosive devices sent to former U.S. President Barack Obama and former Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. This comes 2 weeks ahead of the elections on November the 6th that will determine whether the Republican Party maintains control of Congress. The devices were intercepted during routine mail screenings. The Secret Service confirmed that there is no immediate danger to the individuals concerned. And the Time Warner building in New York had to be evacuated after a similar device was found in the CNN mailbox. The bomb squad confirmed that they had the situation under control. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And for our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on StarSat, channel 461 in South Africa, and channel 531 in Nigeria. And also join us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.